Let's now begin the configuration of our Layer 3 interfaces on our PAN appliance. Now to do that, there are three things that we need to accomplish. One, we need to establish our zones, our security zones that we talked about in the overview and design presentation. Then we need to define a virtual router, and then we can start configuring our interfaces. This video is focused on the first part, which is configuring our security zones. To access the section for zones, we need to first go to the Network tab. Then on the left, let's go to Zones. By default, there are two security zones. There is one for trust and one for untrust. And right now, trust is mapped to Ethernet 1.2 and untrust is mapped to Ethernet 1.1. You will also see that these two security zones are enabled as virtual wire zones or transparent zones. So that means that any zone that you configure, you need to specify the type or the mode. So it can either be a layer 2 zone, a layer 3 zone, or a virtual wire zone. Let's quickly show you how these two default zones are configured, and it's pretty simple. Let's first go to the trust zone, and here's where you can specify the name of that zone, the type, and the interfaces that it is mapped to. Let's go ahead and close this out, and you'll see similar details for the untrust zone. So here you will see the name, the type, and of course a different interface. So adding a zone and those details is pretty straightforward. Therefore, let's go ahead and add our two security zones. And to do that, let's first go to Add, which is at the very bottom. And we're going to call this zone RH for Route Hub -LAN. And once again, this zone will contain our user, server, and our interconnection networks that exist basically on this particular segment here. This is the zone that we're going to configure and later assign to this interface. Once we have configured the name, we need to specify the type of zone, and that can either be a layer 3, a layer 2, a virtual wire, or a tap. So in our case, we need to make sure that we select layer 3. And that will allow us to do routing and NAT services, which is what we want to configure on our PAN appliance. And that's pretty much it. You configure the name and the type. Once we're done, we're going to click on OK to add this security zone. Now let's add the other zone. So let's go down, click on Add. And this one will be called RH-WAN. And once again, this will be a layer 3 zone. So let's go ahead and click on OK. And now we have our two zones configured.